What's going on YouTube? WestHobbiesRC. So today we are back with the SAB Mini Genesis build. So we are going to get this thing built. We are running, of course, V-Bar Evo X Nova 32 2950 kV Hobbywing Platinum 80 Theta Mini Tail Servo. This is the D982. Of course, Theta micro servos on cyclic. We have the SAB plastic servo horns. We have our SAB Swashplate leveler and Mania X 6S 2600 milliamp battery. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get started. So step one, we need to put our little VIN tag or little ID tag into place. So you're just gonna set it down, countersunk hole out. Then you're gonna come back, 1.5 millimeter driver, Loctite on your screw, tighten it all the way up, and then we can move on to the main shaft. Now on the main shaft, you're gonna have one side that's longer, one side that's shorter. The shorter side from this little indent to your hole is the pulley side. The longer side is the head side. So you're gonna take your sleeve, notice there's 1 and 2 indents in the shaft. So we're gonna line those up to our 2 set screw threads, line it up to where you can see the hole there, you can see right there. And we are going to come back with a 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw, on our set screw. We're going to get it started and we're going to tighten it right before it stops. There we go. We can feel it in there and you actually watched it move into place. Now we're going to tighten that down and then we're going to come back with the second 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw. We're going to run that guy in and tighten it all the way down. Now use alcohol and wipe off the excess. Now we're going to start assembling the FBL plate. So if you'll notice, one side is completely flat and one side has a ridged here and here for your tail pulleys. So we are going to now take our flat piece of G10 or carbon, whatever this is, that's where we mount our FBL on. Then we're going to take a 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw. We are going to get this screw pretty much right till it stops. Come back with our second 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on that screw, go cross, so that way we can tighten them both down. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna put the other 2 in, 1 and 2, Loctite, tighten them all the way up. So now that that is done, we are gonna flip it over. We are gonna mount our tail pulley. So here's our pulley. You will notice one side goes in, one side is ridged up. We want the ridge side to go against the plate. So we're gonna slide our 2 M2.5 by 10 through, just like that. And then we'll put our Loctite on after we have the screw through the hole, after you drop it one time. So there, get our Loctite on there. And now we're gonna get that guy started and we're gonna tighten it all the way up. And then we're gonna do the exact same on the other one. And now that both of those are done, you'll just spin them, make sure they're not binded, locked up or anything. So those are good. Now we're gonna grab our plate. This is our main mother plate. This is the front where the motor goes. This is the rear. Everything bolts to this plate. So now we're gonna flip it over and you will notice that there is ridges right here and that is where this bottom half is going to sit. So we're gonna do the pulley side forward. You'll notice it fits right together just like that. So we're gonna line it up, pulley side forward, 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw, get that one started, all the way down to where it about stops, then come back with our second one, same thing, 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on that screw, tighten it down all the way up now, and then go back and tighten the other one up. Now that that is done, so that is what it'll look like, we are going to get our main shaft, shims, and top back into place. So you'll notice there's 3 holes here. That is where this guy is going to bolt down on. We have 2 shims included. We're gonna start with 1. So you're gonna slide the shorter side through this bearing till it bottoms out. And then we're gonna take 1 shim and we're gonna drop it down. Now we're gonna take our top and we're gonna slide it down and it's gonna fit right into place over that bearing and we're gonna tighten it up. And when we tighten this up, we wanna check for up and down play. So Loctite on the screw, 2.5 millimeter driver, go ahead and put all 3 of them in and tighten them all the way down. Once you got all 3 of your screws tightened all the way down, rotate your shaft and make sure it's not extremely tight. It's a little tight, not tight, but it's snug, but it's smooth. And there is no, make sure, pull on that shaft, make sure there is no up and down play. You can also take a small driver just so you can get a better feel. Nothing. So that shaft is solid. We only needed 1 shim. So now we can set this aside and move along. So now we are going to assemble the main pulley with the tail pulley. I already went ahead and put some of the SAB one-way bearing grease into the bearing. It does already come pre-assembled with the bearing onto the pulley, so you don't have to do none of that. So I already greased my one way. I'm going to slide it in. We want the bolt holes to go up, and we're going to take this sleeve first. We're going to slide it down just like that. So it'll slide in, beveled side facing up, hole to the bottom. We're going to wipe off any excess of that little one-way bearing grease that we got in there. Now we are going to take our main pulley here, and we're going to take our shim. There's one shim that slides over first, and then we're going to take our main pulley, and we're going to, or tail pulley, slide it over the main pulley, and this whole assembly is going to slide into place just like this, keeping our holes lined up and rotating until everything is back together. So you have to kind of get all this to go with the main. So there we go, there's the hole. And then we want the side that's recessed here, we want that to be where the lock nut goes. So now we're gonna slide our tail pulley back on. Then we're gonna take our 2.5mm driver with our screw, get that into there. No Loctite because this is a lock nut that goes on this side. So just hold it, get that lock nut started, let it rotate till it fits into side of the tail pulley just like that. Hold it with pressure, tighten it all the way down. Now it is time to install the servo. So I'm gonna get the servo horns done first, and then we are gonna mount them. So I am using the SAB horns. If you look here, they have the different sizes from 11, 14, and 17mm. We are gonna be going with the middle at 14mm. So we need the servo ball in here. And what I like to do is I like to take, since this is a plastic horn, you don't Loctite, but I like to take a dab of CA. I'm using Starbond CA. You can use whichever CA you like, but I like to put a dab of CA on the threads. And then we're gonna go in from the outside into that middle hole, little pressure to get it started. And then we're gonna run that guy all the way down till it stops. Don't over tighten this. Right there, little quarter turn. That one is done. And then you're gonna do the exact same on the other two. So now next step is we're gonna grab our front servo mount. We're gonna grab our anti-rotation bracket. You want these pins facing forward, these standoffs. The anti-rotation bracket is going to mount just like this. You want the curved side to go towards the main shaft. So the main shaft would be here, curved side towards it, not away from it like that. You want the curved side towards it. Now come back with your 1.5mm driver, Loctite on your screw. There's gonna be 3 of them. So you got one right here, and then you're going to have one right here, and you're gonna have one right here. Loctite, tighten all 3 of them all the way up. Now we are going to mount our servos, and we again are running the Theta THS 921As. These are the micro HV servos. So our 2 front servos are going to be splines down and angled out. So you would use your little gauge that SAB gives you, and you want it to match. So you're going to align your servo, center it 90 if you have programmable servos, or set them to a servo tester like your flybarless unit. Get your servos 90 now, and then your back servo is going to go spline left, arm to the right, and that's the way it'll sit down in the helicopter. So we are going to take our front servos, and we're just going to push them through. So again, splines down, you're going to have to kind of feed them through there just like that. Take your next servo, splines down, feed them through there. They will look just like that. Then we're going to come back with our 1.5mm driver, Loctite on our screw, and we're going to put 2 screws top, 2 screws bottom on each servo. So Loctite all those and put them all the way in, tighten them all the way up. So now we are going to mount our servos. For the back servo, it goes in from this side, your 4 screws. You want your tabs going forward. So we'll start with the back servo since we have it in our hands. We're gonna go off of this hole and this hole. It's gonna sit flat just like that. And we're gonna be using a 2mm driver, Loctite on our screws. Now this screw is always a little bit tricky. So if you have a ball driver, it's even better, or you can just kind of get in there on a little bit of an angle. But we're gonna go off of that hole, get that one started. And then we're gonna rotate it over. You might need to move your horn out of the way so you can get to that hole even better. This one is straightforward and easy. It's just this outside one that can be a little bit of a pain. So a ball driver is definitely the better option. And then you're just gonna tighten these all the way down. Now that we got that done, all tightened up, now we're gonna go to the front servo. Front servos, both of them. One hole here, A lot of this is just like the original 420 direct drive or the 420 competition. A lot of this build is the exact same. Loctite on our screw, put one screw into there, come back, 2mm driver, Loctite on our screw. We're gonna get the other screw started, and then we're just gonna go ahead and tighten both of these all the way up, and then we can move on to the side frames. So now we are going to start assembling the lower frame or the upper frame sides. So this is the left side is what we were starting with, and the left side is where we are going to put our battery latch. So we're gonna go off of these holes right here, and you will see that this is a different style latch than the original 420. It is more of the updated latch. So it's gonna fit from the outside just like that. And then we are gonna go into the inside where you see two countersunk holes, and we're gonna use a 1.5mm driver, Loctite on the screw, get one started, come back with your second 1.5mm driver, of course, Loctite on your screw, get that screw started, tighten them both all the way down. So now that our battery latch is done, it is a very nice push latch. So we're gonna move on to the next step, which is going to be these mounts, which is what our boom and lower frame sides will mount to. So you'll notice one hole is bigger. That is going to fit into there just like that. When we flip it over, it is countersunk. So we're gonna come back again with a 1.5mm driver, Loctite on our screw. It's the longer 8mm screws, and tighten these all the way down. And then we're gonna move on to the front side, which is this area right here. We're gonna do the same exact thing. Gonna push it through to where our countersunk side is up. And we're gonna come back with our second 1.5mm driver, Loctite on our screw, tighten that all the way down. Now that is done, both of those are Loctited. Now we need to install the canopy cups. So these cups are just like they did on the Raw 500 and a lot of the newer models. You're gonna push it through. There is a hole insert in there for a 6mm Allen. So we're gonna get our Loctite, and I just put a bead of Loctite just like that. You don't need a ton, you don't need a lot, little. So we're gonna push it through the carbon fiber frame side there. We're gonna take our nut on the back side, and then we're gonna use a 13mm socket and a 6mm Allen. So we're gonna get that started by hand. We're gonna come back 6mm Allen through the canopy cup, and then we're gonna come back with a 12mm socket, and we're going to tighten this guy all the way down, just like that. And that is completed, and now we can move on to the battery rails. Now we have our battery rail here. So we want the flat side to face the bottom, and we want it to neck up to go towards the back. So you will notice that there is 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, and a 4th one right in between that mount and battery latch. So this is going to sit inside of here with that slot through the actual battery latch. Then we're gonna line our holes up here, and you kind of might have to just move it around a little bit. What I recommend doing is get one screw started, which is 1.5mm driver, coarse thread, so no Loctite or anything, and then come back with your second screw, and I always come back to a farther point, which would be this screw hole right here, just like that. And then you're gonna come back, you're gonna put one screw here, and you're gonna put one screw in the front here, and you might have to kind of mold that battery tray just a little bit and then tighten them all the way up. Once you have all of your screws tightened down, this is what it'll look like. So this is your left side. Now you're gonna do the exact same process for the right side with the exception of your battery release. So get that done. So now we got our left and our right. Just make sure that there are a left and a right. Left side is your battery release. Right side is no battery release. So now we're gonna grab our main plate assembly that we already assembled, and we are gonna get started with the left side. Now, first thing I'm gonna do, we're gonna grab our left side frame, and we're gonna take this little hex spacer, and we're gonna slide it in, and then we're gonna come through right there with a 2mm driver, Loctite on that screw, get that guy started, and tighten it all the way down. Now that that is tightened all the way up, we're gonna do the exact same on the other side, but now we are going to take this, and we're gonna drop our frame side. So you'll see how it fits up here, 2 screws here, 2 here, and then there's gonna be multiple at the back side as well. But for now, we're just gonna start one 2mm driver, get that screw started, snug it up, and then we're gonna come back and we are going to put one screw here, and we are gonna put one screw right here in the middle. So 1, 2, and 3, tighten them all the way down. Now I'm running that last one in, tighten down, go back and make sure that they're all evenly tightened. So now that is done for this side. So again, one on the first hole on the left, first hole on the left in the back, and then one directly in the middle. Now on the other side, you're gonna put your other two in, 1, 2, and then 3. The reasoning you leave these two out on this side is for the actual wire guide that goes right here. So now flip it over, do the exact same thing on the other side. Once you get both sides completed, this is what it'll look like. You'll see every screw in on the right side, and then again on the left side, only 3. So now we can start assembling the head. So now we are going to start assembling the head, and of course we're going to start with the radius arm, the washout arms, and just like every other SAB build, you're going to use your retaining compound. We're going to start by getting a dab all the way around that bearing. Then we're going to take our arm, we're going to push that bearing into place. Then I like to give it a twist, come back, rubbing alcohol on a paper towel, get off any excess retaining compound, and then we're going to do the exact same on this side. Yeah, going to get our retaining compound all the way around the bearing to the best of our ability. We're going to push that bearing into place. Again, wipe it off, rubbing alcohol on a paper towel, clean it up. And then for the back side here, we're going to do the same thing. Retaining compound, get that done. Push that guy into place, clean it off. And then we're going to come back and add our spacer. We're going to drop our little spacer down inside of there, just like that. Then we're going to grab our last bearing off of this arm. Same thing, retaining compound all the way around it. And then we're going to just push that guy into place, holding the other one so we don't push it out. And then now you can come back and fully clean everything, go around it, make sure you get all that retaining compound that pushed out. Now that one is done, do the exact same for your other one. So now we got both of our radius arms done. Now we want it to swoop down on our left side, swoop up on the right side. We're going to come back with a 1.5 millimeter driver, and we're going to get that guy pushed into there. And be careful because the bearings are still wet, so they will come out if you're not careful. And then push a shim onto it just like that. Then we are going to come back with our arm, SAB facing out. Get it started carefully so you don't cross thread it, and then tighten that arm all the way down. Now don't go overboard because this is plastic, so we want to tighten it till it stops. See how it feels. Make sure there's no wiggle room play. Give it an extra little tighten. Perfect, nice and tight. Everything is still smooth. And then do the exact same on your other one. So now both of those are done. We can move them aside. Now we are going to build the linkage rods from the blade grip to the swash plate. So you're going to need a 0.9 millimeter driver. And if you look, there is a tiny hole right there where you can insert your 0.9 to give you a turnable threaded rod. So now we are going to take our linkage end and we are going to get it started. And we want to tighten this guy down until we can see it start to come through that little opening gap there. So tighten it all the way up. And we're going to be looking right through that hole there just till we start to see it. Right there, just till we start to see it. Now we're going to take our other side and we are going to thread it all the way on until just where we start to see it, just like the other side. Once you have both of those done, you want them to be approximately 44 millimeters from end to end. So adjust both of them evenly. Those are done. Now we need to take our head block, our O-rings, and we're going to take a little bit of micro lube GL261. And we are going to give the O-rings a good coating. So I just put some on the O-ring and then I just wipe them around a little bit more, get them nice and coated. Then we're going to take our head block and we are going to push them into place. And then we are going to come back with our hardened dampener. You'll see there's a lip. The lip goes towards the bearing. The larger lip goes towards the bearing. And then we're going to do the exact same on this side. O-ring, get a little bit of micro lube on there. Get it so the O-ring is nice and coated. Push that guy into place. The lip, bigger lip into the O-ring dampener. And then I like to push it down on a hard surface and make sure that O-ring is seated in there. And then now we're going to take our feathering shaft with the rest of the micro lube that was on our finger. Just give it a nice coat. And then we're going to push it through the O-ring, through the dampener, just like that. And then just kind of center it up. And I like to coat the outside. Just, there we go. That is done. Now we can move on to assembling the blade grips. So now assembling the head, you see I have everything laid out here. It's the way our bearings are going to go. So of course, when we get to this point, smaller ID, cup side up, thrust bearing, open side out, up, larger ID, cup side, shim. And that's the same on both grips. So what we're gonna do first is we're going to grab one of our washout arms, our mixer arms, and we're gonna take our screw. We want SAB facing out. We're gonna slide our screw through the arm, get it through that little shim that's inside of it. So sometimes you have to kind of spin it around just to like that till it comes out. Now we're gonna take a dab of Loctite, and we are going to put a dab of Loctite on the threads. Then we are gonna take our head block, and we're gonna get that screw started. Tighten that screw all the way down, just like that. Check and make sure that it is still nice and smooth. Flip it over and do the exact same on the other side. Now we got both of our radius arms installed. Everything is nice and smooth. We're gonna set the head block aside for a second. We're gonna assemble the blade grips. So we're gonna assemble one blade grip. I'm gonna use my driver just to help with stacking the bearing. So I'm gonna take the smaller ID, open side out. I'm gonna take my thrust bearing, I already pre-greased with micro lube GL261, close side in, open side out. Then we're gonna take the larger ID, cup side in, so it sandwiches the bearings. Then we're gonna take our shim, we're gonna slide that guy down into there like that. Then we're gonna take our blade grip, and we are going to slide the entire bearing assembly into place. I like to tap it down, and then I like to walk the driver around to get any excess grease so it doesn't get into our threads. We're gonna do it again. So we have smaller ID, open side out. We're gonna take our bearing, we're at the open side out. Larger ID, open side in, so it makes a sandwich. Then we're gonna take our shim, drop that guy down into place, take our next blade grip, and we're going to insert, walk it down, kind of give it a tap, walk the driver around, get any excess grease off, and now our blade grips are assembled and we are ready to put them on. So now we're gonna take our head block, and I'm going to assemble with one thin shim per side. So you don't have to assemble with any, just from the amount of these that I have built, not the Genesis, but the 420, I have found that one shim per side is perfect on these guys. So I'm gonna take my one shim, I'm gonna wipe off any excess grease. And now I'm gonna take the blade grip. Now again, after you assemble, check for your preload. If you have to add more shims, you can do that. So now I got my blade grip slid into place here, come back with my 2.5mm driver, Loctite on my screw, and I'm gonna get that screw started, and I'm just gonna turn it until it stops, just like that. I don't wanna torque it down yet. Grab our next blade grip. We're gonna slide it into place, carefully making sure we don't push out our thrust bearings. Take our second 2.5mm driver, Loctite on that screw, get that guy started. And again, we're gonna tighten it until it stops. So there we go. Now we're gonna come back with two 2.5mm drivers, one on each screw here. And we're gonna tighten them down, and you'll watch everything compress, all of our grips, bearings, everything. Now we're gonna tighten these guys down, just like that. Now we're gonna take our bearings out. Now the head should feel tight, but it should not feel gritty or locking up at any point. So it is tight, which is what we want. We want a tight head for the initial assembly, but everything is still smooth. So now our blade grips are installed. That is done. Now we can move on to putting the arms on. So now for the blade grip arms, these are sacrificial composite arms. I can tell you from crashing, they are worth having. So we're gonna take our 2.5mm driver. We're gonna slide our screw through. I don't like to put Loctite on prior because Loctite will eat plastic. So we don't wanna give it any reasons to weaken it, but I haven't had any problem doing it either way. I just slide the screw through first, then put the Loctite on. 2.5mm driver, get that screw started, tighten it all the way up. Now make sure it's sitting nice and flush. Don't go overkill because these are plastic, so they will crush out, but that is what we want right there. Now we're gonna come back with a 1.5mm driver, and this is your ball end. On the ball end, you're gonna wanna put a dab of medium CA. I am using Starbond. You can use any CA that you like, and we're just gonna put a dab of medium CA on there. You don't wanna use Loctite. CA acts as a Loctite, stops it from coming loose. Get that guy started. Tighten it all the way up, tighten it down, and then you'll use a paper towel to use any excess just till it stops. Don't go overboard. and then take a paper towel and just get any of the excess that might come off. That is done. Now you're gonna do the same on the other side. And this is our last one. Tighten it down till it stops. Perfect. Paper towel, wipe off any excess. Now our head is completely assembled. So there we go, all together now. Now we are gonna take our push rods, our linkages, SAB facing out, pop them into place. That is one. Come back, second one, SAB facing out, pop that into place. Head assembly is complete. Now we can move on to the swash plate. Now assembling the swash plate, you will notice that all these balls are the same size. So it's 1.5 millimeter driver, Loctite on your screw. Get that guy started, tighten it all the way down. Now, the only one that is different is your anti-rotation pin. So this guy right here, I don't put any Loctite on this, and I just snug it up. I don't even snug it up. I leave it loose because we have to remove this to get the swash plate on, and then we Loctite it. So this gets Loctited after. Now go around and put all these balls in, Loctite, tighten them all the way down. So now we're gonna take the swash plate. I already got my micro lube on the shaft, all nice and greased up. We're gonna drop the swash plate down into here, and this is the reason why I say leave the anti-rotation bracket off until last. Now we're gonna take our anti-rotation bracket, and we are going to slide it in first, get it into place, and then we're gonna come back, we're gonna put a dab of Loctite on there, and then we're gonna line the swash plate up. Sometimes you have to kind of angle it, there we go. Then we're gonna get it started by hand. Once it's started, small flathead screwdriver, and we're gonna tighten that guy all the way down. There we go. Now we got it there. Let's just make sure it's tight. Done. All right, now that is done. Everything is nice. It'll wear in. It'll be a little tight in the beginning sometimes, but as the swash goes up and down, it wears in. That is done. Now we're gonna take our head. We're gonna make sure all of our linkages are out of the way. Looking at your head block, you'll notice one side is a perfect circle and one side is kind of oblong. That's the side the lock nut goes. So we're gonna line up our hole. You can see a hole in the main shaft right there. We're gonna slide the head block on. There we go. We're gonna move this linkage out of the way. You can see that hole line up. And we gotta kinda, there we go. Oh, went too far. There we are. Now we need to pull this head block up just a little bit. And there. Now we're gonna take our 2.5 millimeter driver with our head bolt. And we're just gonna kind of work that guy into there. There we go, just like that. Now we're gonna come back with our lock nut, and we are gonna get that guy started, and then we are gonna tighten this all the way up. There we go, got it started. I'm gonna hold it till it stops, and then I'm gonna push it. Then I'm gonna push it with my thumb while tightening this guy down until it sets into that little hole that it has there. There we go. And now we're gonna tighten it up. There we go. That is done. And then now we're just going to pop all of our linkages on. So these are going to go on to this side, the straight balls, and then the blade grips go on to the curved ones. So just kind of line all this up. It could be a little bit tricky. Pop it into place. There's one. Rotate it. Two. Now we want SAB to face out. So I'm just going to give it a half turn out. Pop that guy on. 3, spin it again. Again, SAB needs to face out. So I'm gonna go even 1/2 turn. 4. There we go. Swash plate is on, head is on. That is all hooked up. So now we can make the servo linkages. Now we need to assemble the push rod linkages going from servo to swash plate. So you're gonna need a 0.9 millimeter driver. Just like we did with the blade grip linkages, there is one end that the driver fits into. You're gonna take your end here, you're gonna get that guy started, and you're gonna run it about halfway through that little opening right there. So just go ahead and screw one end in, keep going until you see it poke out about halfway. Right there, that looks good. Now we're gonna take our driver out, take our other end, get it started, and you're going to adjust and build all 3 linkages to approximately 41 to 42 millimeters. So run this one down, keep going, and then get your caliper out and adjust all 3 linkages to about 42 millimeters from end to end. Once you have all 3 made up, that's what they're gonna look like. Your one back linkage, you're gonna remember it's just half and half. Your front ones are gonna be a little bit different of a twist. So now we're going to take our linkages, SAB facing out. And what I do is just move the servo horn up, hold my finger behind it, snap it into place, and then put your servo back to about neutral. Of course, whenever we go to set the helicopter up, we'll level the swash plate and fine tune it. There is one. And then you're just gonna get your front two popped into place. Once you get that done, this is what it'll look like. Now let's move on to mounting the motor and motor belt. So now we got our X-Nova 3220 950 kV motor. Only run X-Nova, you guys know the best. So we're gonna bend that forward, our motor wires. So get them where they're going forward. We still have to solder our bullets. Now we're gonna take our motor mount. The flat side goes to the flat side of the motor, beveled screw side up. We're gonna line up our motor mount. We want the wires to this cutout. And then we're gonna come back with our 2mm driver, Loctite on the threads, on your screw, get one started. Don't snug it all the way up yet. Come back with your second, Loctite on your screw, snug that guy down. Now tighten both of these all the way up and then put your other two screws in. So now that we got all four of our screws in, I just went ahead and wiped off any excess Loctite with rubbing alcohol, let it evaporate. Now we are going to install our pulley. So this is the 22 stock pulley. This is the nice thing about this shaft A motor is that it already has the flat spot right in the perfect place. So you're gonna take your pulley, line up your flat spot, which is about right there, 1.5mm driver, Loctite on your set screw, run it all the way down till just before it stops, and you'll feel it when it gets into there. You can kind of feel it move up and down now. Now you know you're in the flat spot. I'm gonna adjust my pulley to where it's almost flush. Yeah, about right there. That looks good. Tighten it down. If we have to move it later, we will. But from all the 420s that I've built, you want the shaft just barely protruding. That is all done. Now we can mount this in the helicopter. So now before we put the motor mount, everything in, you got to put your last cross brace. It's going to go into the frame right here where this hole is. So we're going to take this guy, position it into place to where our hole lines up. You can see it right there. Then we're gonna come back with a 2mm driver, Loctite on our screw, and we're going to get that screw started. Once we have it started, we can tighten it all the way down, and then we're gonna hold the actual stiffener with a 4mm wrench. So we're gonna take that little wrench. You could hold it with a pair of vice grips or something like that, but the 4mm wrench fits it, and then we're just gonna tighten that guy down, and we're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna put the screw in right there. So now for mounting our motor. So our motor's gonna sit in there just like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide my motor into place, and I'm gonna put the outside screws in, 2mm driver, Loctite, get that guy started, and we're just gonna not tighten it down, but we're gonna run it down so it's not so much thread left. We're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna do the same exact thing on this side. 2mm screw, 2mm driver, Loctite on our screw. We're gonna run it down just so we can still slide this guy back and forth, and then we're gonna hold the mount up with our finger, and we're gonna come back with a 3mm driver, washer on the screw, and then we're gonna get that guy started. And again, we're not going to tighten that one up. We're just going to snug it up to where it still can slide back and forth. Now we're going to slide the motor all the way back, flip the guy over, and then we're going to take our belt and we're going to feed our belt through. So you're going to have to go under that little support that you just put in and just get the belt on the pulley and then get it on the motor pulley. Just like that. There we go. Now our belt is on. Now we can pull the motor tighter so we can see how we're looking. The belt's riding in the middle of the pulley, so our pinion is set perfectly. So now we need to tension the belt. In order to tension the belt, I'm gonna take a 2.5mm driver, reach into here where the screw is, and I'm gonna put pressure on that screw while I tighten this front screw up. So you kind of have to hold it. You really need 3 hands to do this. There we go. Put some pressure, tighten this front screw up, and then I'm gonna flip it all over and do the exact same on this side. So put pressure, tighten that front screw up, there we go. And then now I'm gonna come back, 3mm driver, and tighten that center screw all the way down. Just like that. Now we're gonna check everything is still smooth, it looks good, our belt's riding in a good place. Tension feels good, not too tight, not too loose. That is done. Let's start working on the tail. Now it is time to start assembling our tail. So we have everything laid out here. I already pre-micro-lubed our tail bearings, O-rings, and shafts, so that way we could just assemble. So we're gonna start with the grips, get the bearings in, and then we will move on. So I have everything laid out here from your screw with the washer, small ID, open side out, thrust bearing with the open side out, and micro-lubed large ID, thrust bearing, open side out, and your washer. So the way we are gonna assemble this is we're gonna take our small ID, closed side in, open side out. Then we're gonna take our thrust bearing. We want open side out, so it'll look like that. Large ID, open side in, so it sandwiches. Then we're gonna take our washer, drop it down. Then we're gonna take our tail grip now. We're gonna slide it down into the bearing, into the grip, tap it down, walk around to get any excess Loctite, set it aside. Again, small ID, open side out, thrust bearing, open side out, large ID, open side in, so it creates a sandwich. Shim, throw it all together, take your grip, and we're gonna insert through here, just like that. Get that guy to sit down into place, wipe around to get any excess Loctite or any excess grease, and now we are ready to take our tail shaft. We are gonna take our one O-ring, push it into place, come back with our second O-ring, get it pushed into place. Now we're gonna take our driver, again, go through the O-rings, make sure we get any of that excess grease that might be hanging out. We don't want that. Take your feathering shaft. I already put a little bit of micro lube, just get it started. Make sure your bearings are seated into place. Kind of center that shaft a little bit, about right there. Now we're gonna come back with these little guys, these little shims, push one onto this side. And we're gonna come back with the second one. We're gonna push it onto this side, just like this. Get that all in, and then we are going to kind of try to center this shaft up the best that we can. And then now we're gonna take our tail grip, and we're gonna drop one on into here, just like this. Careful not to push the bearings out. And then while we have it on its side, we're gonna take our second grip, drop it down into place, SAB facing out, and now we are gonna Loctite and put our screws in. So now we're gonna come back 1.5 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw, and we're gonna get one started. So we got our washer on. Don't wanna push, you just wanna start it, because if you push, you can push the shaft out, right? Till it stops, just like that. Now we're gonna come back with our second 1.5 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw. Now we can put a little bit of pressure on it because we're holding it. Run that one all the way in until it stops. Once it stops, now you're gonna watch everything kind of come together, and you'll feel it. It just like pulls everything together. And then tighten it down. Don't go overboard because they are tiny screws. You don't want to break them. Just make sure everything is nice and smooth, which it is. So now we are gonna come back with our 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on our threads, and we're gonna screw our ball end on one side. Make sure you get that guy good and tight. And then we're gonna come back with our second 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on our threads, get that guy started, tighten it down nice and tight. Now our tail assembly or hub is assembled. Now let's get the pitch slider. So now for our pitch slider here, you'll notice that there's 2 recesses, both of them go up. So we're gonna take our pitch links. You'll notice one side says S, one side does not. That'll come into play in a second. You're gonna take this little plastic shim, you're gonna slide it in to the plastic linkage just like that. And then we're gonna start with the left side with the S facing up. Now we're gonna come back with our 1.5 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw. Then we're gonna tighten this guy up. Make sure it doesn't bind. And then you're about to do this exact same thing on the other side, but you don't want the S to face up. So the left side, S faces up, right side, it faces down. Get that one installed. So now we got our micro lube on the shaft. Now we are gonna come back. Our pitch slider is done. Again, S on the left, not on the right. It's gonna face down and up. So now we're going to slide our pitch slider into place, and we can get some micro lube lower. And now we're gonna pop our ball ends on. But we wanna make sure that when we pop these guys on, that the S is facing out on both sides. So go ahead and pop them into place. Now look, you should see the S facing out and the S facing out. So now this is done, and let's start assembling the tail fin and box. So now we are going to start assembling the bell crank and the tail fin. So I went with the orange with the silver tips. I think that looks good. They give you a couple different colors you can choose on the tips. So now for the bell crank itself, very, very simple. Take one bearing, push it in from the bottom, just like that. Then you're gonna take this brass sleeve, drop it down, take your second bearing, push it in from the top, just like that. Push it, make sure they're together. That is done. Now we are gonna come back with a 1.5 millimeter driver, and you want retaining compound. Now we are going to go in from the top. You will see there's a little recessed area. Slide that guy through here. Now come back with a 2 millimeter driver with your ball end. Get it started and tighten these all the way up. So now that that is done, you can take your screw for now, slide it in. We're not going to put any retaining compound on the screw just yet, but you kind of have to wiggle it. There, slide it in, and we can set this aside with these two little pins. And now we are going to assemble the side plate. Now take your side plate, take your bell crank base, drop it through just like that from the outside, SAB facing out. We're gonna flip it over, then we're gonna come back with a 2 millimeter driver. We're gonna go into these bottom holes down here, Loctite on your screw, get one started, get it almost all the way tight, and then come back with your second one, 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on the screw. Tighten this guy all the way up. Now that that is done, that is what it will look like. So now we are going to take our tail shaft. We are going to get this guy slid into place. We want that flat spot sticking up. We're going to take our tail pulley, and we want the set screw on the left side. So we're going to slide it in there just like that. And then we are going to come back with our set screw. 1.5 millimeter driver. What we want to do is line up. If you can see that where that indent is. We want to make sure that that is lined up. And then we're going to take that set screw, 1.5 millimeter driver, and we're going to tighten it down until it stops to make sure that we are in that set screw. So you'll feel it when you're in it. So you can kind of see how that's moving on its own. Now, before it's fully tightened down, wiggle it, give it a pull, go side to side. You can feel that it's in that groove. We know it's in the groove. Now we're going to tighten that guy all the way up. And we're going to come back with rubbing alcohol and clean the excess Loctite. Now we're going to come back with our tail fin, and we want to make sure that the flanged bearing is to the inside. So we're going to slide it on just like this. Get that guy slid into place. Bam, just like that. Line up our two holes. We're going to come back with a 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on your screw, get one started. Then we're going to come back with our second 2 millimeter driver, Loctite on our screw, and tighten both of these all the way up. So now that that is done, now we are going to install our bell crank. So if you ever notice that the pitch slider has these two little indents right here, I always like to put one of my screws into there just so it doesn't spin around. But so now we're going to take our bell crank, and we are going to have retaining compound on the screw, get that screw started just like that. And then we are going to tighten this guy all the way down with a 2 millimeter driver. After we tighten it, let's make sure everything is free. When you're building the tail, make sure every step of the way it's free. So now we're going to come back with our 1.5 millimeter driver. And you don't want any Loctite or retaining compound on these because this is going into plastic. So we're going to tighten that guy up just till it stops. Perfect. Check that. It's still smooth. Work our tail. Still smooth. And if you are worried and you want to do something, you can add a dab of CA and then go ahead and put your top one in. So now grab your mainframe assembly, and we are going to mount the spacers for the tail boom onto the frame. So there are these carbon fiber mounts, these carbon fiber pieces, and then you're going to put double-sided tape on them. You're going to do the same thing for the tail mount. Like any original Goblin, you have your two lock nuts and your little tail tape that is on there. So I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to peel back the other end of the double-sided sticky. And then now we are going to carefully line these up with the holes here, just like that, and that hole there. And there we go. Put a little bit of pressure on it. It kind of sits angled. Now do the exact same on the other side. So now that that is done, one on that side, one on that side, set the mainframe assembly aside. This side, grab the one for the tail now. Do the exact same thing. You are going to peel off one side. Make sure you get the whole thing off. And then now we're going to grab our tail boom. So what I like to do is I take my X-Acto knife and I stick it to this mount. and that's how I control it as I go into the boom. So in the boom, it's gonna go on the inside, right inside of there. So you're gonna slide it through the inside, and we want to line up our holes, get it lined up. There we go, it's lined up. Push it into place now. You could also use your screw and tighten it down to hold it. Do the same thing on the other one. Now that that is done, we got them on both sides. Now we are going to take our tail belt, and we are going to take our tail. So we're just going to get the belt onto the tail, just like this. Feed it through everything. And then what we're going to do is on the opposite side, so we're going to pull it tight. And then what I like to do, make sure it's straight. Right now it's twisted. And then I'm gonna fold it together, just like this. I'm gonna come back with a piece of blue painter's tape, and I'm going to wrap the belt in tape. And this is so we can feed it right through the tail boom without having to use a guide wire or anything like that. So now we're gonna take our tail boom, and we are just going to slide this guy all the way through and pull it out the other side. And we can grab it now. There we go. Perfect. Now we are going to slide the boom into place, or the casing into place, just like that. And then we're going to come back with a 2mm driver, your screws and beauty washers, and you're going to get all 4 of your screws in, and don't push hard. Let it start on its own so you don't push those mounts out. And then just do that for the other 3. Leave it loose, and we can move on to mounting the tail servo. So now we are going to mount the tail servo. So one thing I recommend is tighten all 4 of your screws all the way up, just till we go to tension it, but that'll help suck those carbon plates flat and let the double side tape stick. So now we're gonna mount it up, or flip it upside down. And on your tail servo, we are running the Theta THM 982s, or 982, it's only one servo. SAB horns, 15mm is what you want from the center screw to the ball end. So we are at 15mm. Screw from the bottom, retaining compound, tighten it down. So now we're gonna drop the servo into place, and it's gonna sit in there just like that. And we're gonna take a carbon fiber tab, and we are gonna take a 2mm driver, Loctite on our screw, and we are going to get one of these screws started. So once you get that screw started, we're gonna run it down. Then we're gonna come back with our second 2mm driver, Loctite on our screw, and we're going to get that screw started. And then you're going to tighten these 2 screws down. Then you're going to put your back 2 screws in, tighten it all up, and we can move on to the push rod. So now you got all 4 of your screws in, tightened down. Now we are ready for the push rod. So you're going to set that aside. Now we're going to grab the push rod, and like all the newer SABs, everything is glued for you already, which takes a lot of work out of it. So now we are going to come back with our threaded rods, and we are going to put a little bit of retaining compound. So I'm going to want to get some retaining compound on there, but I put a little more than you probably need, but that's okay. So now we are going to thread it into place, and we're going to run it all the way down. And now we are going to come back, and what I like to do is I like to take a little old pair of side bites or side cutters, and I grab it to hold the threads, and then I like to just turn it down until it stops and just kind of lock that guy in there. That'll help make sure it's all the way down and seated. It'll also make sure when you go into unscrew and screw, it doesn't unscrew itself. So now we're going to take our push rod end, and we're going to get it started. These are the new style, so they are very nice. And we are going to want, of course, closed side out. But you want a total diameter of 434mm. So what I recommend doing is start long, put your other side together, and then adjust from there. Get the other side done, and we can mount the push rod. So now we got both of our ends are done. So now we're gonna pop onto the servo. So of course, close side out. You could take your ball link pliers, use the smaller end, push it in, and that allows you to pop it right into place. And then we can do the exact same thing on the back here. Line our push rod up, use our ball link pliers. There we go, that is done. Our push rod is complete. So now let's mount this to the mechanics. So now we're gonna grab our tail boom, grab your tail belt. Let's move the servo wire out of the way. Pull it, look down the belt and make sure, or the boom, and make sure you don't have any twists or anything. And then give it 1/2 rotation twist to the left. And then now we are going to kind of hold it there so we don't move it around or anything. And we're gonna take our fuselage mechanics or our main mechanics, however you wanna call it, and we are going to feed the belt through those idlers, and you can use a driver to help you. So we're just gonna pull it through here, get it to come out and down around here. And we want to get the belt, there we go, keeping that twist, making sure it stays inside of the pulleys. Then just slide the tail boom over those two. And then now we'll feed the belt through the pulleys and around the tail pulley. Just double checking that you only have a half twist. Now we're gonna grab a 2.5 millimeter driver, and we are going to put our screws in. So we're gonna put one right here, Loctite on the threads. So get one started. So we got this one started. Don't tighten it all the way up yet. Come back with your second screw, put it into here, and then put the other two and tighten them all the way down. So once you get all 4 of your screws in and tightened, the boom is now on. Our belt is ran. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back to our tail casing here, and we loosened all of our screws, so we should be able to slide this in and out. So now we are gonna tension our tail belt. So just like Krakens or any of the Il Goblin, anything like that, it's very simple to tension. So you're gonna grab your casing, give it a little bit of a side twist, and tighten one screw down, just like that. And then we're gonna move over to this side, and you wanna twist this side and tighten this screw down. And you're just gonna walk the tail casing back and forth until you get a proper tail belt tension. When you are done, make sure that you don't have the tail casing pulled one side or the other, that everything is still nice 90 degrees. That looks good. Tail belt tension shouldn't be guitar string tight. It should have some play in it. When you come under here, it's about as tight as I would run this belt. We're not going for crazy head speed on this machine, so that feels good. You can also grab your tail rotor, spin the main rotor. You heard it slip, so the belt needs to be just a little bit tighter. I'm gonna end part 1 off here, but we got a ton done. Part 2, this thing will be finished up and ready to fly. We did tension the belt up a little bit. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Something different, a Mini Genesis. I'm super excited to be able to build this thing. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Take care and have a great day.